Hey YouTube, John with Grown Reviews here, coming at you today for a video a lot of you have been asking for. We are directly comparing the Benelli M4 to the Toros Arms 4 Peaks Imports Copolla T4. We're also going to talk about some aftermarket parts compatibility as well. Guys, real quick, go down below, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, smash that notification bell. Get updated on all the latest videos and content we're putting out to you. It helps us out with the YouTube algorithms, and let's get into it. All right, so everybody's been asking not only for a direct comparison, but also about aftermarket parts. Do the Benelli M4 parts fit in the T4? The answer is yes, mostly. So this Briley handguard here is actually off of my personal M4. And then this is a Briley carbon mag tube. This is actually a spare one I had, identical to the one that's on my personal M4. Both of those fit, sort of. Mag tube, obviously no big deal. Slides right in, threads up, not a huge issue. The downside is the actual barrel, I guess you want to call it this barrel ring here. On the Toros, it has kind of an odd bump out, so slides on and off the M4. If you have anything along this M-lock rail here, it's a little bit too big. And then on the flip side, where that same ring locks into the handguard, it takes a lot of work to really get it lined up. And then you'll also notice there's a gap right there. But if you don't mind, not quite a perfect fit, these two items will work, so you can add 2 American-made parts to this and get that 7+1 capacity to meet 922R. The other one, this is the A&S trigger guard, and it does house my Freedom Fighter tactical trigger and my Terran tactical lifter. So this came straight out of my M4, dropped right in. Everything fit, finish, function just as it should. The flip side, when I tried to put the Toros trigger group into the M4, you could make it work, but the rear of the trigger group is actually just a little bit too wide, a few thousandths, so you'd either have to really cram it in there or take a file to it and file it down to make it fit. So I think this receiver is a little bit wider, has a little bit looser tolerances versus Benelli. Obviously, for 1/3 of the price, there is only so much you can expect. Rails both look absolutely identical side by side. So do the rear sights. So I think if you wanted to add something like a Scalar Works mount to add either like an Aimpoint Micro or an RMR, the screw pattern's exactly the same, at least looking at it visually, so shouldn't be an issue there. Pretty close copy. Let me get all this pulled off and we'll actually look at both of these side by side and I'll highlight some of the differences. So next thing we'll talk about here is going to be the trigger groups. So this is the OE Benelli polymer trigger housing. This is my A&S trigger housing with the Freedom Fighter Tactical and that Terran lifter. And this is the T4 group. So, few minor differences there. The A&S and the Benelli group both have a little bit longer tail to them. It's a little bit shorter on the T4. This lifter, and I know this is aftermarket, it's got a little bit more of a divot to it a little bit wider than the stock Benelli lifter. Trigger geometry, kind of hard to tell, but it is a little bit different. But in terms of parts, springs, clips, everything looks almost identical. The only thing I did notice is the OE and the ANS don't have this little tail back here that the T4 does. I think that may be part of the reason that it doesn't like to fit in the Benelli. Something I did want to highlight too is kind of some of the tolerances, so you can see all this wear here on the actual housing itself from the lifter versus the ANS one that actually has more shells through it and doesn't have that same wear and tear though. So it looks like quality control and tolerances are kind of iffy, but I do go back and I'll restate it. This is 1/3 of the price of the Benelli. Let's get into the rest of the shotgun. All right, so the next big one to talk about in comparison, or in comparing these two, is fit and finish. Obviously, we've talked about the receivers, the trigger groups, sort of interchange. You can go from here to here, but not the other direction. Some of the other stuff is the little fit and finish stuff. If you can see here on the barrel ring, like we talked about, it is a little bit bigger, so it does make hand guards, certain hand guards, a little harder to fit. But you can also see a lot of the pitting in the metal that they just kind of covered over. I'll also talk about they did what looks like a black oxide coating on the top of the gas piston versus a stainless steel. And then this is coated exactly the same way as the barrel, whereas Benelli uses what appears to be a little bit different coating on the actual piston tubes themselves, part of the barrel. So two different coatings, one for the barrel, one for the piston system. On the Toros, it does appear to be all the same. So it does look like we can interchange most parts. With my other video, and of course we'll put a link right above me here for you to click on our actual range report where we talk about some of the reliability issues we have. Looks like theoretically you could buy the receiver with a little bit of work, or buy the shotgun, excuse me, and essentially use the receiver to build your own M4 using Benelli parts, and then obviously the correct amount of US made parts to meet 922R. And the last one, a reviewer question. We are going to compare the recoil tubes real quick. Let me get her apart and we'll take a look. Okay, so recoil tube assemblies. So this one is obviously for the collapsible stock and does have the threaded end on it. The Toros currently uses a smooth one, I believe, or I would assume that their collapsible stock version actually will have the notches on it. Is threaded in the end. That's how that field stock attaches. One large Allen head key through the back. In playing with it a little bit, this is the same threading as the Benelli tube. So to fit a pistol grip field stock style as you spin it on, that would be, it appears to be possible. I don't know how well it would clear the tail of the trigger group, if you will, but they do appear to be threaded, at least at the top, the same. In trying the bolt, the thread all the way at the back is different on the M4 than it is on the Toros. So you would have to go to Ace Hardware or something of that nature and source a correct bolt for that. Guys, hope you enjoyed this comparison, the side-by-side. Hope it gives you a little bit more clarity in how close a copy this T4 really is. We appreciate you watching, and as always, stay safe, train hard.